Welcome back to the channel. This episode is specifically for flight instructors. If you want to up your game, if you want to be better at what you do, this is the episode for you. But if you're not a flight instructor, if you're a student, or if you're a pilot who owns or rents aircraft and flies under Part 91, there might be something in this for you. Let's see. This episode is brought to you by Rex Air Professional Pilot Academy of Sebring, Florida. They've got everything a flight student needs to be successful. So give them a call, 309-397-6191, or drop them a line, info@rexair.net. Recently, our mailbag received a question from a viewer in our vast and expanding audience, and thank you very much for that. We're right up to 5,000 subscribers now, and thanks to you for that. The question was a pretty basic one. I'm a CFI. Can I instruct a sport pilot student in a Cessna 172 even though Mosaic hasn't come into effect yet? It's a good question. There is no such thing as a dumb question. If you don't know the answer and you're not willing to go look it up yourself, you should definitely ask someone, but you should still go look it up yourself. If you're not familiar with the privileges and limitations of your certificates and ratings, that's a problem, especially if you're a flight instructor. None of us knows everything, but we all have access to the reference material that gives us the answers to anything. So I appreciate you asking the question. Let's see if we can maybe put a little bit of a spin on this so the answer is more involved than just yes or no. Prospective students generally show up at a flight school with one goal in mind. I want to learn to fly. They don't actually understand the system. They don't have any idea what's actually available to them. And you, as a flight instructor, should be providing them with guidance, insight, mentorship, and a clear vision of what they're trying to achieve from a certification standpoint. Ask yourself, when is the last time you had a prospective student walk into the flight school who knew the difference between sport pilot, recreational pilot, private pilot, commercial pilot, ATP, who understood the difference between Part 61 and 141? The odds are you've never met that student. I've never met that student. I certainly wasn't that student. I was as ignorant as anyone when I walked through the door. And luckily, I got good service. Not everyone is so fortunate. I'm willing to bet we're north of 99% of students who have no idea what options are available to them. It's our job to fill them in on that and help them make a good decision. Unfortunately, there is a contingent in the flight instructor community who really aren't doing a great job, and I am sorry to say that. But just as there are pilots, like the individual who wrote into us, who doesn't really know their privileges and limitations, that's kind of a problem throughout the industry. And if you don't know what your privileges and limitations are, or if you're a student and you don't know what privileges and limitations you're trying to achieve, it's going to be an uphill battle. By the way, you are aware that there are two completely different types of flight instructors. I hope you are. I hope if you are one, you definitely know the difference. If you're a flight instructor with a sport pilot rating, and yes, that's a thing, you can instruct students who wish to become sport pilots. You can do flight reviews for sport pilots. You can train sport pilots to increase their skills, but you're limited to sport pilots. You can even instruct sport pilots who wish to get their flight instructor rating just like you have, but you're still limited to sport pilots. You cannot instruct students who want to apply those training hours to a private or a commercial or an ATP. By the way, I appreciate you listening to me on this, but you should still verify for yourself. And you can easily enough by looking up FAR 61.413, Privileges and Limitations for Sport Pilots with a Flight Instructor Rating. You should definitely go look that up. If you're a CFI, on the other hand, a Certificated Flight Instructor, you can instruct sport pilots or recreational pilots or private pilots or someone who wants to gain their commercial pilot. Your privileges and limitations are much broader than the sport pilot with the flight instructor rating because you have a higher level of certification, more education, more experience. So the short answer to the original question, yes. If you're a CFI, a Certificated Flight Instructor, you can instruct a sport pilot student in a Cessna 172. And you can do that even though the Cessna 172 isn't listed as a light sport aircraft as of this date. It will be after October 22nd, 2025. But either way, as a CFI, you can instruct that sport pilot student in the 172. And there's a reason for that that has nothing to do with Mosaic. The student hasn't officially declared themselves a sport pilot student. They're just a flight student at this point. They don't really have an understanding of what they want to achieve. So rather than doing the traditional CFI thing of doing the glad hand and the big smile and taking them out to the ramp and showing them the airplane and getting them signed up and logging them in and taking them for a flight and getting them to write a check, why not decide to provide exceptional service to your client instead? Why not start that relationship by saying, let's go sit down and talk about what your goals are and how we can help you achieve those. Go grab a Coke or a cup of coffee or a cool bottle of water out of the refrigerator or a cocoa if it's wintertime. Sit down and talk to that person, that prospective client, about why do they want to learn to fly. And then you can guide them into what type of certificate they're going to want to achieve. Without knowing the answers to those questions about why your client, your prospective client, your prospective student wants to learn to fly, there's really no way you can fulfill their goals. It's still a mystery to you. You don't really know why they're here, and they don't either. That first conversation, and it might be an hour or two, that's important because that's going to lay the groundwork for working productively with that client for the rest of their training period. Maybe they tell you in that discussion the reason they picked sport pilot is they understand it's less expensive than private pilot training, and right now they don't have the financial means to get the private pilot, but they're pretty sure they could do the sport pilot. Well, maybe they can and maybe they can't, but it might be worth a discussion to say, why don't you come around sometimes? You can read up, you can talk to CFIs, you can learn something, but save up until you're absolutely sure you have enough money for the sport pilot, because there's nothing as frustrating as starting your training, going through your entire budget, and falling short of the check ride. Now you've spent the money, you've done the training, all those skills are going to atrophy, that knowledge is going to go away because you're not using it, because you didn't plan in the beginning, because your flight instructor might have led you to believe it's actually going to take 20 hours when it's probably going to take more than that. Best to wait and succeed rather than rush in and fail. Does your prospective student have the intention of flying with a spouse and a child to destinations 2 states away? Well, if that's the case, sport pilot's off the table, Mosaic or not. That allows you to give some guidance to them that, no, you're looking for a recreational or a private now. Let's talk about those privileges and limitations and see if that works in your plan. Prior to Mosaic taking effect, which will be October 22nd, 2025, the problem for most students who wanted to get a sport pilot certificate is most flight schools don't have a light sport compliant aircraft on the field. They just don't have anything to train them in, and if they do, they may not rent that airplane after the fact. With the activation of Mosaic, that problem goes away because yes, that sport pilot student can fly a PA-28 or a Cessna 172 or a 150 or a whole variety of aircraft that were off limits before. Those opportunities may be very attractive to your student, provided they really do want to be a sport pilot. If they want to be a recreational or private pilot, still not a problem. Just additional training, more expense, a little bit longer period of time in training, but they can do it. And if you help them make the right decision, everything is better. Now, there's also the possibility your prospective student intends to become a commercial pilot. Maybe they want to fly for the airlines or corporate, but they're getting their sport pilot because that's the most expedient way to get to the part where they can log PIC time. And they've got a decent job, but they're pretty sure they can do a cross country or two every week over the next year or so and build some time and get to the point where now I can just upgrade to a private, upgrade to an instrument rating, upgrade to a commercial certificate, and I'm off and running. That's valid. Not traditional, but it is valid. Knowing that from your client, now you understand where they're going and you can tailor your instruction to meet their exact needs. Remember, our goal as flight instructors, whether you're a flight instructor with a sport pilot rating or a CFI with years of experience, is to treat every client as a unique individual. Their goals are what we're going to base our instruction on. Our goal is to help them succeed. Their goal is to get the information out of us that they can become successful in the thing they want to do. As a flight instructor, if you're ever wondering, can I do this type of instruction in that kind of aircraft, feel free to write us. We are happy to answer that question. But if you're going to be a true professional, if you're going to be the type of CFI people seek out for instruction because you have a good reputation, you're going to want to learn to look up your own privileges and limitations on your own. Even if you only intend to be a CFI until you have the time to go on to the next job, your reputation is going to follow you. Believe me, you wouldn't be the first person to make it to the airlines and find the person in the left seat used to be the person in the left seat when you were an instructor. And if you provided substandard service to them as a student, if you wasted thousands of their dollars, if you wasted weeks or months of their time, you might not enjoy this leg very much. Look, as awesome as we are here at Mad Props Aero, and we are, trust me, Pat and I both think the world of each other. The FARs are a better reference than we are. The Aeronautical Information Manual, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, a whole slew of advisory circulars, the information you need to be an excellent flight instructor, to provide the kind of service to your students that makes you a shining star, it's all out there. So as you think about your career as a flight instructor, try to be the Ritz-Carlton, not the Motel 6. And there's nothing wrong with Motel 6, but is that what you want to be? Or do you want to be the person that at your next job and at the interview at the airline or the charter company, people go, I've heard of you. You did an excellent job. I've seen great recommendations from your chief instructor. I've even heard from some of your students. Because you never know which student you have, their dad or mom is the chief pilot at the place you're going to apply next. It happens. That conversation, that little time to sit down with that prospective student right up front to find out what do they really want to do and how can you best help them achieve that goal, that can make all the difference in their success and in yours. And if you're the student, if your instructor is not having that conversation with you, you might be talking to the wrong instructor. Keep shopping around. I know there might not be 15 flight schools in your neighborhood, but there's some place where there's a good instructor who uses a syllabus and really is dedicated to make sure you get what you want to get at a reasonable price in a reasonable amount of time, and you might even make some lifelong friendships in the process. I wish you, your students, your instructors, and everyone you come in contact with the best of luck. But remember, being a flight instructor is a privilege. To do this work is a very rare thing. We make an impact on the people we deal with that lasts for years and years. So do it well. Hold your head high. Be an exceptional flight instructor. Everything will get better throughout your career. I'm 100% sure of it.